Yo, it's Rat from Kicking Dust. See that diagram? That's what we're doing. It's been a minute, but first we're going to make some big holes to look inside to make sure the studs are where they're supposed to be and that there aren't any surprises. Lasers are your best friends, and we're using them here to keep things clean and tidy when we fasten the shelves up. Setting up the cleats are a key, as everything that attaches them will affect how the doors will work. The cleats are straight from Home Depot, but they're of the good kind. White melamine, which is great for resisting moisture and everyday wear and tear. It's affordable and provides a modern clean look without having to deal with a paint job. Plus, I'm going for a consistent appearance with no variations in color or grain, which can be desirable for a sleek and uniform look. These are all tall shelves that we're going to set up with, but before we do that, I'm just going to try to clean up some of the pieces of the cleat. Bang. See, I'm pretty excited to set up the next lines, as I'm using these lasers to line up where the next studs are going to be. It's going to help for the next cleat. I'm using a set of clamps to just keep things nice and tidy, and since I don't have any help, it helps me prop stuff up. And as I put in the last piece, the missus is just checking in on me. No big deal. Off we go. Now these tall shelves are 96 inches, and we're about to chop them down to 4 to 5 feet. Now it's time to decide which section of these shelves will be the top, as well as which side I'm going to drill holes on for the adjustable shelves. The squiggly lines are where the grooves will be.
And then select downstairs when you use your iPhone.
You'll hear the banter between my wife and I. But once all the fun marker stuff is done, we're going to cut the first set of grooves on the sides of the shelf, and this is how that looks. Before we even do that, we're going to start putting the holes down. Nice and clean. The wood piece you see is actually a piece of the cleat. I'm just tracing it onto my shelves because that's the cuts I'm going to make. I raise my table saw's blade to match the height provided by that piece and make my first run. Because the shelves were too long for the sled, I'm not going for the clean cut the dado style way. Instead, I'm raising the saw blade as high as I can and cut through this way. It still does the job. As you can see, I'm matching the height of the cleat with the height of the table saw. Clamp my shelf in and off I go. This is the trial run. And that should match the height of the cleat. Then once I latch it on, I find out I'm just a bit short by a few millimeters. I run it back on my sled, and boom, it's in. Once that passes through, I'm just going to start cutting the rest of the shelves on my sled, and off I go. In you go. Boom. Yeah. Here's some more cuts. And time lapse in 2, 1. Now, the reason why I cut the bottom of those shelves is to give a little bit of a gap. And this will make a lot more sense as I go through the rest of the video. Pocket holes for secure grooves. Making sure I'm reading the instructions. Plop. There it goes. More creative use of the clamp. Let it be my friend. Little fasteners on the side pockets. And checking the square for 90 degrees. Then I repeat the process the rest of the way, using a piece of wood to give me a consistent width for each of those shelves. That little piece of wood was carefully measured to make sure I'm given about probably 8 to 9 inches. So 3 large shelves on the left, and then 3 large shelves on the right. Here comes 5 of 6. I'm always checking to make sure that I'm 90 degrees out. Now if you look at the diagram after I'm done with this guy, these are the bottom pieces. Both of these right here are for the left and the right. This piece that I'm cutting here is actually to cover the gaps. It'll make a lot more sense once it's all done. I split my pieces up here, and I didn't have a planer at the time, but I kind of cheated by just using the table saw, just to clean things up. And there you have it. I make my cuts to match the shelves, and I use these to actually to cover the gaps, because I'm quite particular about how I want the shelves to look. I didn't want a gap in between the shelves and the wall, so I wanted to cover it up. So here's the left side. In this case, I didn't use any glue. I just screwed those in. And this side, I used glue, but I did not roll it. So I made a huge mess on the right side. I found myself having to wipe it down with a rag. The left side was a little bit more fortunate that that piece of wood actually was right on the stud. So screwing them down gave it a lot more stability. The nice thing about the right side is, although there was no stud on that side, it was glued towards the drywall, giving it a little bit more stability. It was just a little messy. And that's that. Now we work on the bottom part of the shelves. Pocket holes are your friend. Some of the pocket holes will be drilled directly to the cleat, while some will be drilled right to the wall. And through this diagram, this is the portion that we're going to focus on, right down here. Use my square to trace my lines, and use my clamp. Give me a little bit of guidance and keep my wood from shifting. It took a little practice to make sure I'm drilling straight up. With all that shelf experience that I've had in my previous projects, it helped a lot. Here's the next piece. More pocket holes for good measure. Again, directly screwed right into the cleat. And some towards the wall. Boom. Pocket hole ready. This is the section we're working on. Nice and easy. I added a little bit more clamps here to give some more stability, but it allowed me to keep things 90 degrees, keep things square with the cleat. This is important as we move forward into the project because doors will be created on this. And it will be good to make sure that the doors are consistent. It becomes a pain when you have to actually build these doors and they have to be different sizes for each section. And I don't want to go through that. Here's me securing the panel. I'm using my impact drill to good measure. The screws I'm using here are GRK. They're great. They're not your typical Phillips type screws. These use the star type of screws, which are awesome. And they look good too, even if you don't see them.
Does that look cool?
This piece right here are the middle shelves. They're a lot shorter, but I wanted to give that look so I have an area to put my tools into. And this is the cleat specific to that shelf. I'm using the laser again to make sure I'm in the right. Like I'm using the laser to make sure I'm all set up and good and straight. Measure twice, cut once. In this case, drill once. Once that's drilled down, I'm basically committed. I've committed to that mount. Making use of the lasers was huge. Save yourself some time. Then I'm writing some measurements on where the shelves should land based on the diagram you saw earlier. And then some cuts in between. The cut I'm making right now is the bottom portion of the shelf. And here's a little neat trick. After cutting these to size, we start to do the same thing that we did previous on the short shelves. Now I could have taken the dado route and cut vertical wise or horizontal, whatnot. And you'll see this in the next example. I'm still cutting it this way by making the table saw tall. Boom. Same technique. It's a little bit easier since the length is a lot shorter, and your result should look just like this. Clean, eh? Then we do the same thing, set up your pocket holes. Boom. A little bit of cleanup, and here comes the try run. More pocket holes. It's also, just as a tip, it's also good to not cut too much off. That way, if you need to make adjustments, you just need to cut a little bit off. But if you cut too much off, then you'll have to really rely on the screws. But when you have a snug fit, it's just a lot better. Like this. It's a really snug fit. And you can only do that if you have just enough groove, but not too much of one, to allow those shelves to sit nicely. Trying to get them nice and snug is going to be great for the long run. Less wear and tear for screws that are being attached to your cleats. Then I check it. Boom. Exact measurements. I can tell you how excited I was when I did that. This is another thing. Here's a technique. Don't have any help. You need something to slide underneath. Use squares and clamps. And boom, they're in. One of these shelves were at 90 degrees, so I had to do something creative. And this is what you gotta do. Make sure that you use a piece of wood that's square enough if you ran out of actual steel squares. And just mount them in. It's super important that we drill straight up. So here's an accessory that allows me to drill 90 degrees. I can't remember what it's called as of this writing, but I'll definitely put it in the description on YouTube. Very useful stuff. I'm using the squares, check to make sure that everything is square, and then I'm good. Now we're going to make holes for the wooden dowels. Since these things are maxed out at 96 inches or 8 feet, I needed to create a longer version. I needed to create a long shelf on the top. Basically a cover that'll work this portion out. I only did 3 dowels. I probably could have used more, but it's alright. These are going to sit on top.
There's a lot.
And these dowels are pretty strong. It's best to cut them diagonally so that they could fit right in there. It's really difficult to try to shove it in as a flat dowel. It's best to cut them diagonally. Then you can easily put them in together just like this. It also would have been better if I put glue instead of doing it this way. It would have been easier to just rub it on the surfaces and around the dowel before actually just pouring them in that way. Not the best sexy way, but it did its job. Then once it's glued down, it's time to carry this whole thing above my head. Here we go. In we go. This is about maybe 110 to 120 inches across the board. And I'm trying to shove it in without breaking the piece off. Those dolls were very strong, but as soon as they settle, it's easy peasy. Yeah, these melamine boards can get pretty heavy. The 8 feet is heavy by itself, but then when you attach your dowels and you attach a little bit more length to it, it gets a little bit tricky.
It does.
You probably hear the missus trying to give me a hand, but then very last minute.
I need a mask.
Oh,
Woo! You got it?
Somehow I did.
You good?
I'm
Yeah.
Alright.
in and pleased.
Wow, they're not doing just shit down there.
Yes. The next piece was to put some edge banding, and that's why I put it backwards. This allowed me to give that one piece look. I didn't want to show any of the cuts. So on the other side you have a finished look, which no one sees anyway, and the unfinished, which I just covered with edge banding, and it looks great. A little bit of cleanup before we start putting the adjustable shelves, and here we go. I am excited. Yeah. Now the next piece we need to do is the top shelf. A little bit of drilling here and there. Make sure we fasten this guy down. Again, GRK. GRK fasteners for the win. Now I'm just trying to get some angles here. 88.9 degrees is not exactly 90.
Degrees.
And neither is
As you can get.
this portion down here. I got 89.6. That just tells you nothing is ever straight when it comes to the house or someone's drywall. The whole point of that is to see how this is going to affect your measurements in the long run, because we're going to put doors and that will impact it. For this, I'm actually going to attach a melamine on the ceiling, which can be nuts because you're trying to attach something to the ceiling. And in this case, it's going to go on a drywall. And when it gets placed on the drywall, it's going to hang there. Those 5 measurements that you see are actually the spots where I'm going to drill small grooved holes. And this is where all of the strong fasteners are going to sit. Since it's so important to have a clean look, I also didn't want to drill directly with just screws. I wanted to use toggle bolts, which we're about to see in a minute. So I'm going to clean this up. It'll all make sense. Here comes the toggle bolts. And there's going to be a couple of these. You'll notice that in the previous one, there were holes that were drilled. Little pocket grooved holes. These things are going to go right through them, just like that, through the ceiling. And then I'm going to zip that upward. In this next footage, you're going to see me use a creative use of clamps that will allow me to hold the ceiling, the melamine board on the ceiling, because it's going to be really hard without any help. And since I didn't have any at the time, this was my only way to do it by myself. So check out those clamps. You're going to have to use some really long clamps, with some of them flipped upside down. So use the foot of the clamps, and then try to slide them up there. It's a little bit scary. You're trying to get some momentum, a running start to go up the ladder without falling. You're like, here we go, here we go, here we go. And this is the portion that we're working on right now. Check out that diagram. Just slide it through the shoes. Go, 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 go. Boom. It's in. Then I just start squeezing the triggers on each of those clamps, and they slowly find their way to the top of the ceiling. I really wanted to make good use of all that space, and I wanted that uniform look. I didn't want to have that hanging box look that some cabinets are. I wanted to make every use of inch on this wall. I didn't want to cheat, but this was the way to do it. It's crazy to try to even do this way, but I was very finicky and I was very particular about how I wanted this cabinet to work. And then here I am, drilling the holes in. Each of the holes were probably about 1/4 inch, so that's the drill, but I used just enough for the toggles to fit in and come down, and then zip upward. You'll notice that some of them don't have the toggles sticking out because I probably broke them already. And then the next thing, the final piece, more toggles, more holes, and some really bad use of autofocus. Sorry about that. Still learning. Awesome. Now we start setting up cleats. And you'll notice some gaps that are in. That's just part of the problem with ceilings and walls. They're never perfectly straight. They just aren't. They're just weird things that happen when you build a house. And the only thing you can do to accommodate these weird small gaps is either to use joint compound or just get used to seeing it that way. Good thing is that later down the line we're going to have doors. You're unlikely going to see those. The doors are going to be on the left and right. And the middle parts, like the 3 shelves below on the right side, in the middle, are going to be also open. A little bit of cleanup on the wall. And more additional portions of the cleat being installed. And it looks pretty good so far. I do a little bit of sanding. A little bit more cleanup. And once I'm done there, it's time to do some joint compound. love this look. I love the clean look. I like not seeing screws. It's just clean. Same thing with the bottom here. I was going to do one piece, but I decided to split it in two sides. And then, once I was done with that, I needed to make sure things were lined up. Since the shelf sticks out a little bit more, I had to use a laser to make sure I'm all lined up. Because the doors are going to be impacted. Looking good. And the bottom cleat, ready to go. Slight little bit dressed up a little bit. Forstner bit first, then a countersink hole, then the fastener. I think this is the tight lock. I can't remember the name of these fasteners, but again, check out the YouTube description. A little bit of cleanup. Off we go. Go Niners. Our last piece of the cleat for good measure. Forstner bit, countersink hole, fastener. Boom. In you go. A little bit of cleanup. Now the next pieces are the last bit of the shelves. These are the things that go vertical. In this one I decided to go the other direction. I started using a different technique, and you're about to see a montage of that. So you don't really need to do this. I just decided to do it. I taped the sides where I'm going to cut the grooves off, and my daughter wanted to jump into the mix. And it really doesn't matter, because we're going to end up sanding them, but this is just what we did at the time when we recorded it.
It's good.
So?
It's like, okay, I got this, Dad. Good job. Once everything was taped down, I was ready to take this guy on the sled and give it a ride.
For a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, sweetie, you're going to have to go. All right. And enjoy this montage.
We have to do some laser work.
Oh, this is the best part, is when you're nearing the end of this phase.
Beautiful.
And you got the pocket holes lined up just right. But nothing was ever perfect. I still had to hammer things in. I still had to clean up some of the edges of the grooves, as you can see right there, just to get that right fit.
Oh, nice.
Every side of the shelf here actually took around 10 to 20 minutes each. So as you see me fly by through it in a few minutes, this actually took maybe an hour or two, so maybe about 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours just getting this portion done because I'm so particular. I'm trying to make everything square. I'm trying to line up everything with the laser. Because once I put those holes down, once the fasteners are in, you're committed. It's really hard to like unscrew something from melamine because now those grooves are already pre-created. Hear me getting fancy with those cleats, or excuse me, those clamps. Starting to look good. There's still a sticker in there, so I'm going to remove this guy. There we go. And off we go. You'll notice the squares that are being used at the bottom just to keep things lined up in 90 degrees. And then my laser as a guide to make sure I'm straight, lining up with the shelves below. And I'm done. I'm pretty much 95% done with that phase. And this last piece. Ready to go. This has been awesome, guys. Thanks for joining me on the first part of this journey. We got a second part coming up, and just looking forward to have you guys check it out. It's the really fun part. It's when we get a chance to make the doors and the finishing touches and the shelf to make this look really, really good.
Eat time.
I love to eat time.
I love to eat time too. Ready? Let's go eat.